I'm not sure I'm going to post this because I'm going to talk about something fairly personal. I went through an experience, and I've seen other people go through this same experience of loss. And I had opinions about it. I had advice. Just do this, don't do that. And I pretty much did the opposite of what my advice would have been. I got, um, I had a beautiful life in France, living in a small village, in a house we loved, in the midst of nature. Um, there were creative activities. There were social activities. There was a sense of being connected to ourselves. There was a huge amount of pleasure. It was a very beautiful life. And it seemed it was destroyed gratuitously by my younger brother, who stole my inheritance that I needed to pay off the mortgage on the house and continue living there. So, what I was forced to do at that point was sell the house. Well, we tried to keep all the beautiful things we were attached to, we put them in storage. All the paintings that I had done over at least 50 years, some sculpture I had done, all my writings, um, and other things. A whole library of beautiful books, things that were precious. Things, though. These were things. And for the longest time, I entertained the idea that I would somehow figure out how to make the money to go back, that we would get everything out of storage, we would buy a house, it would be similar to the house we had. Not so big, not so grand, but that's fine. We don't have kids to take care of now. But it didn't happen. Here I am, 85. I have not made the money that I thought I might be able to make, I should be able to make. And the loss becomes real. The loss of all of those things represents an identity in a sense. And I had resisted all those years, at least 10 years, probably 12 years, um, feeling the grief, the loss, and the anger that experiencing that occurrence in my life, if I were to take it on full blast, it would have hurt maybe much more deeply. Now it's been, say, 12 years. And I finally had to admit I'm not making the money in time to go back. My wife is ill. I'm definitely getting old. I feel it in my body. I'm not the person I was when we lived there, and especially when we moved there in my 50s. And it's not going to happen. So there is an experience of letting go and letting the whole experience hit me, the whole loss. I will say that in the interim, I built a different kind of life. No, it's not it doesn't have the fullness of that life. It doesn't have all the different aspects that that life had of creativity, of physical activity, of social activity and friendships. And I realized that it's a little more complex than I thought. For the longest time, ever since I left the United States in my 20s, I've had a kind of fraught relationship with being an American. Um, I read an article today by a Frenchman who said if you live in Vietnam as a Westerner, no matter how well you speak the language, how well you're integrated in the culture, you are never going to be Vietnamese. The bar is high in France to become French, but according to him, you can do it. Language is very important. You really have to speak good French. Um, I never really had that ambition to be French, but I realized um, I wanted to master the language as as thoroughly as I could. And I did get to the point where people, when they first met me, would assume that I was French. I did have a little accent. Couldn't quite place it, but French people from different regions have different accents. The Swiss who speak French definitely have a different accent. They couldn't quite place it, but they very often they just assumed that I was French. But that didn't really, that's not what I was aiming for. Um, but now that I'm not going back, I do feel a sense of loss. I do feel that I really was looking for another identity. And for some reason, the Texas identity wasn't really it for me. Um, I really wanted to be from somewhere else. I really don't know how to say that. But now we're in Mexico. I have no ambition to be Mexican, but as usual, I want to learn the language. I just happen to like that kind of thing. But um, speaking the language, understanding people readily, and being able to talk about anything and not being noticeable as a foreigner in the way you express yourself, in the pronunciation of the words, in the rhythm of your speech. All of those things are things that I just naturally like to work on. There's no reason for it. I've always been that way. It's just kind of built in. I don't expect, even if I accomplish what I'm trying to do and I reach a very high level of expertise in speaking the language and understanding the culture, I don't expect or necessarily aspire to changing my identity. But I do fall in love with other cultures. I I actually love the French culture. I love their art history. I love their ways, their rhythm of life. I love their countryside. I love their food and wine. I actually feel very comfortable around French people, mostly, um, and can communicate as if I'm one of them. And that feels good to me. But if they ask me where I'm from, I'll just tell them I'm from Texas. I'm not trying to be French, and I'm not even sure why you would want to do that. Um, and I'm not trying to be hide the fact that I'm American. There are all kinds of Americans, and Europeans know that. They know very well that anyone who's traveling and living internationally is probably not a Trumper. So what I'm really trying to put my finger on, though, is how we deal with grief and anger from a wound. And I was reading something by an Eastern guru who said, when somebody hurts you, that is a precious person to you. That's something that can teach you something. You can learn from that person. You should cherish that person. I have to admit, that's above and beyond my expertise, my spiritual expertise. And I find it an interesting idea, but I do believe that we have to be honest about how we feel. If we are angry, there's a reason. The reason for anger is to define your boundaries, to not be violated. It is a natural objection the body gives to being violated. The mind and the body don't like that. And mixed with grief, when somebody steals something from you and you lose something precious to you, you're naturally going to feel you're going to grieve. Well, I resisted going very deeply into those feelings for a long time until it just became unavoidable. It just became something that I had to accept. I just had to. And maybe it's not quite as wounding as it would have been at the time. The way it happened was sudden and the adjustment has been difficult, but gradually we built another life. It's a simpler life, um, but it's creative. It is stripped of all of those accoutrements we had, and as you get closer to death, as you draw closer to the exit door from this life, what are all of those things that you've accumulated mean to you? What are they going to do for you? You're going to have to leave them behind sooner or later. And maybe I left them behind sooner than I wanted to, but I realize now I'm leaving a lot of things behind. I'm leaving my body behind little by little. I can feel the aging coming. I'm letting go of my youth. I'm letting go of my fitness. Um, this is a time of letting go. Yes, there is a certain amount of regret. There's a certain amount of grieving. Um, I'm not angry about the inevitable changes that age brings, but I do admit to feeling an anger that somebody would actually steal from me. Not just the money, but the life, the lifestyle that I had that took something to build. It took some real effort. So all that building, all that effort, all of the blood, sweat, and tears that went into making that life out of very little suddenly was swept off the board. And I didn't like it. I didn't want it. Well, that's kind of the story of life. I mean, everybody has sooner or later to give up, to actually relinquish all of the things that they attach to themselves to, to create some kind of identity. And without those things, that identity disappears. I have to admit, I'm shocked that I actually fell for that, just like everybody else. I have to admit that I was just as stupid as everyone else who becomes attached to things that have nothing to do with their soul. So that's my little TED Talk for the evening, and I wish you all a good night.